When you picture a truly successful business, your brain probably jumps to a certain image.
Right.
Rigid conformity, suits, spreadsheets, efficiency reports, and a very predictable hierarchy.
Exactly. And today we're going to challenge that.
We really are. We're going to challenge that deeply ingrained conventional wisdom.
We are, because the sources we've gathered suggest that achieving powerful, sustained business success doesn't require conformity at all. In fact, it requires the opposite.
So this deep dive is all about the power of contrast?
That's it. The core concept isn't about finding people who already share your vision. It's about intentionally leveraging opposing voices, contradictory ideas, and even, fundamentally different working approaches.
All to create a kind of dynamic organizational equilibrium.
Precisely.
So we're taking the old adage that opposites attract out of the dating pool and right into the boardroom.
We are.
And our mission here is to uncover how this dynamic, this intentional friction, is maybe the only reliable path to true innovation.
Yeah, moving you beyond just slight, predictable variations on things that worked 5 years ago.
That's the mission.
So we'll start by defining the abstract necessity of these opposing forces. We'll focus on functional roles like the essential friction between creatives and management. Then we'll dive into how to build diversity by hiring for contrasting professional and life experiences, moving past that common corporate echo chamber.
And finally,
and this is the most critical part, we'll outline the actionable strategies you need to actually manage the complexity that results from all this productive conflict.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this first major polarity. Organization meets disruption. You mentioned that standard image of a successful business, the suits and Excel spreadsheets.
Right.
That image often dominates because it equates success with measurable efficiency, but relying only on what you can count on a spreadsheet.
The sources warn that it's an innovation killer.
It absolutely is.
If all you look at is historical data and efficiency metrics, you are mathematically precluded from finding a solution that doesn't currently exist.
Which is why the research points to something different.
Right. They point to something they call the design-driven approach.
Okay.
And integrating this perspective into executive decision-making isn't just nice to have.
It's the real secret sauce.
It is the real secret sauce.
But that phrase, design-driven approach, it sounds a little bit like jargon.
It can, yeah.
So for our listener, how do we define that approach in, actionable terms? What are we actually talking about here?
It fundamentally means moving decision-making away from being purely retrospective.
Looking at what has worked.
Exactly. And making it perspective-focused on the needs of the human user and exploring what could work.
So it's about prototyping, testing things.
It means embracing iterative prototyping, being willing to test flawed ideas quickly, and valuing the qualitative user experience just as much as you value the quantitative profit margin. It's a completely different way of seeing the business problem.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting for me. If the organization is built on stability and measurable growth, why do you need those disruptive creatives in the room? I mean, what specific non-metric value are they bringing to the table?
Their value lies in what they are comfortable with.
Which is?
Ambiguity and failure. Creatives are essential because they can explore solutions that literally do not exist yet, which gives the organization optionality. They're comfortable navigating that messy, rough, what-if stage.
Which a rigid structure would just avoid because it looks inefficient on paper.
Completely. And they connect totally disparate data points, user emotion, cultural trends, visual narratives in ways that, standard KPIs or spreadsheets simply cannot.
But that sounds like a potential nightmare relationship.
It can be.
If one side is focused on anything is possible, budgets are secondary, and the other is focused on stay within scope and timeline, how do you prevent that from just grinding into total organizational paralysis?
Well, that tension is the point, but it requires the other half of the dynamic to make it productive.
Management.
Management is the critical grounding force. They are not the dream killers, as they're sometimes portrayed.
They're the reality providers.
I like that. Yes, they take that blue sky idea and they contextualize it.
Within the market need, the budget.
The regulatory constraints. They ensure that the fantastic product can actually be manufactured, distributed, and, priced affordably and reliably.
So if the creative team is focused on maximizing the potential value to the user,
the management team is focused on minimizing the real-world risk to the business.
It's an essential duality.
Precisely. Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, what happens if this balance is lopsided?
The outcome is predictable.
It is. If the organization is dominated by business minds focused purely on minimizing risk and maximizing efficiency, you get excellent execution. But
The product innovation is limited to just slight variations on what worked before.
only incremental improvements, not disruptive breakthroughs. And over time, that just leads to stagnation.
Right. And the opposite side is equally dangerous, I'd imagine, if you give the keys entirely to the creative disruption team.
Then you get a high failure rate. You get beautiful, highly innovative products that might captivate a niche audience, but they fail entirely to scale.
Why?
Because no one was there to define a clear business case, to identify the supply chain risks, or to point out where costs and features needed to be reined in to meet an accessible price point.
The passion is there.
But the commercial viability is lost.
The source material drives this point home beautifully by using the example of co-founders,
Yes.
which is a perfect microcosm of the entire organization.
It really is. It's a critical early warning sign. If you have two co-founders who possess the exact same strengths, say they're both brilliant technologists or they're both finance wizards,
They create a lopsided echo chamber.
that's the perfect term for it. They reinforce each other's blind spots. Critical areas of the business just get neglected, whether it's product vision or people management or financial control.
So success requires complementary strengths right from the very start.
You need the visionary who loves the product and the pragmatist who loves the process. That dynamic tension ensures a well-rounded foundation where collaboration thrives because everyone has a distinct necessary role.
Okay, so we've established the necessity of opposing functional roles, the disruptive designer versus the disciplined manager.
Right.
But you argue that successful businesses have to look deeper than just the job title when they're seeking this necessary opposition.
You absolutely do. If you, the listener, review your recent hires and you realize you've been recruiting predominantly from the same elite schools,
Offering the same degrees.
looking for people who've had the exact same linear job history,
The organization is inherently limiting its problem-solving scope.
you are stuck in a rut. You're stuck in a rut because everyone sees the world through the same narrow lens.
That's a powerful statement. I mean, it challenges the traditional idea of recruiting high performers.
It does.
We have to actively challenge the idea that there is a single correct pedigree for success.
We must. Because the most valuable opposites are often found in talent that represents diverse backgrounds, life experiences, educational histories, and completely contrasting outlooks.
So if your organization is striving to be relevant beyond your immediate neighborhood,
Then having voices that bring completely different life paths and expertise into the room is, well, it's non-negotiable.
let's get specific here, because the examples provided in the material are what make this insight truly actionable.
They are.
It's about non-traditional talent, bringing unique, specialized skills that a traditional business degree just doesn't teach.
Take the first example, bringing someone with a fine arts degree into a tech or product design environment.
Okay. A traditional design team might focus entirely on functionality, optimization, A/B testing,
The metrics.
the metrics exactly.
Yeah.
But bringing in an opposite, like someone who studied painting or sculpture or creative writing, that introduces a completely different toolkit.
It does.
So what's in that toolkit? I mean, they don't have code skills.
They don't need code skills. They have narrative skills.
Okay.
They understand visual pacing, compositional hierarchy, how to guide the eye and attention. They understand color theory's emotional impact and the psychology of narrative flow.
And that unique perspective could revolutionize something as simple as, say, an onboarding sequence or a website's user interface.
It can. It moves it from just functional to genuinely engaging. And that's a specific expertise that business metrics will never, ever train for.
That reframes the entire hiring process, really. You're not just looking for a specific skill set. You're looking for an alternative perspective.
That's it.
So, moving over to management, you often find teams focus solely on cost and scale, and they might be lacking what we used to call people smarts.
And that lack of emotional context is where the opposite viewpoint becomes so essential. Think about someone who has spent a decade in a high-stress, customer-facing environment.
Like retail management or complex hospitality or teaching.
Yes. They possess a wealth of operational resilience and crucial organizational skills that are basically invisible on a corporate resume.
Such as?
Real-time, on-the-spot resourcefulness. How do you improvise inventory management when a delivery truck breaks down?
Right.
How do you de-escalate an emotional conflict between staff and a difficult customer while still enforcing policy? These people have honed crisis management, patience, and empathetic communication for years.
And putting that people smarts on a management team that is otherwise focused only on efficiency metrics.
It provides the critical context that turns a policy that looks great on paper into one that actually works when it interacts with real human beings.
This moves the whole discussion of talent complementarity from, abstract philosophical terms to concrete transferable skills.
Yes,
It's about ensuring that all critical viewpoints, whether they're technical, creative, or human-focused, are inherently represented in the room.
Right. You are building an immune system for your business by inviting smart people who view the central problem completely differently.
You are intentionally inoculating yourself against the disastrous effects of groupthink by constantly injecting that necessary opposition.
That's the goal.
That sounds fantastic in theory, but here's the challenge, and this is where I think a lot of organizations fail.
I agree.
If you simply jam disparate people with vastly different work styles and approaches together and just tell them to figure it out, that sounds less like a recipe for innovation and more like a recipe for total chaos and burnout.
That is the critical warning the sources emphasize. Simply mixing people does not equal success. Infrastructure and culture. They're the essential ingredients for making constructive friction possible.
So you can't just mandate that the disruptive creative and the rigid manager work together and expect them to magically harmonize.
No. You have to build an environment of trust that actually allows for disagreement.
So what does that necessary cultural adjustment look like on the ground? What's the first thing leadership needs to change?
Leadership must let go of the idea that there is a single right way to solve a business problem or to produce a deliverable.
Okay.
You have to acknowledge that opposing processes, a messy whiteboard brainstorm on one hand and a structured Gantt chart on the other, can both lead to success. And you have to value both of them equally.
You have to create psychological safety.
Exactly. Every team member has to genuinely know their idea or their approach is valid, even if it's currently the minority opinion.
That speaks to tolerance, but I feel like tolerance alone isn't enough. You have to actually respect how people work and ensure they have room to thrive.
Yes, that means the work environment itself needs to accommodate that difference. The organized, metrics-focused person might need quiet, uninterrupted focus time to deliver their value.
While the creative disruptor might need a messy, collaborative, high-energy brainstorming space.
And the company must dedicate resources to supporting both of those needs, not just catering to whatever the dominant style is.
So the culture creates the tolerance, but it's management that has to actively harmonize the differences and ensure everyone is still pulling toward the same goal.
That's right.
What are the specific management actions needed to bridge that gap?
Well, management must act as the primary translator and facilitator. First, they need to create structured spaces specifically for feedback and discussion where the goal is mutual understanding, not victory.
So this isn't a battle.
It's not a battle, it's a necessary integration.
Give us an example of that kind of structure.
Okay, one strategy is mandatory cross-functional reviews, but with a twist. It's not just about reviewing the work, it's about reviewing the philosophy behind the work.
Interesting.
For instance, the management team must present their budget constraints and explain the potential market loss if costs escalate. That forces the creative team to understand the financial pressure.
And conversely.
Conversely, the creative team must present their initial prototypes and explain the user delight or the pain points, forcing the management team to understand the experience stakes beyond just the numbers.
That sounds like mandatory professional empathy.
It is. It's exposing team members to the philosophies and decision-making styles of others. The second action is ensuring the company culture provides a strong, unifying goal.
So it's not just about making great widgets.
No, it's about why the organization exists. That shared mission is the common ground they all stand on when their methodologies conflict.
So it sounds like a constant, ongoing effort. You're not eliminating the tension. You're managing it so it becomes productive energy instead of destructive conflict.
And that tension, managed correctly, is where sustained growth happens. Look at organizations that market themselves on this very duality.
Right. The sources reference the implied example of Stella Pop.
Yes, which actually sells this blended functional approach as its core strength. They describe themselves as half marketing master, half management prowess, but all success.
So they've built their entire business on the premise that those opposing forces, the visionary drive of marketing and the disciplined control of management, have to be structurally merged.
It's intentional. That blending of functional opposites isn't an accident. It's a design choice for how they operate.
So what does this all boil down to for the organization that's trying to get out of its rut?
It boils down to this.
Yeah.
If you want to achieve truly innovative breakthrough success, you have to embrace disagreement and actively seek out opposition, not shy away from it.
We've established that the greatest strength of an organization is found in its complementarity. You need that design-driven disruption to complement rigid organization. You need the human context and the resilience from, say, hospitality expertise to complement a pure tech focus.
Yes.
And this shift in perspective moves the definition of success away from predictable conformity and toward calculated, intentional friction.
That friction is your engine. And if true innovation requires opposing viewpoints to prevent that inevitable stagnation, that endless loop of variations on old successes, it raises an important and perhaps uncomfortable question for you, the listener.
One to consider as you finish up this deep dive.
If you look honestly at your current team's biggest challenge, whether it's product development, customer service, or internal efficiency, which specific opposite approach or professional background is most urgently missing from your problem-solving process right now?
Find that opposite, welcome the disagreement, and watch your organization grow. We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into leveraging the power of opposites.